Hello, welcome to the Low-Code Campfire. This is episode number 153 for June 28, 2024. Today we'll be talking about our version 1.26 and anything else that you want to talk about. I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for Plant and App, and joined capably by Patrick Anderson, Technical Success Manager for Plant and App, and we will be your guides today. This is an event we do most Fridays, 10 a.m. Central Time, this hour, and it's an everyone's welcome event. And we hope you'll join us and be able to jump in and learn and share. We record all these and put them out on YouTube, and so that's a great place to look for particular content. You can search YouTube for that or just follow along week by week. We'll run this agenda, and we always say hi, and then we'll jump into anything that's first call, whatever's on your mind. I have a few things on my mind, and we'll just, it's generally an unstructured hour, but we will get into some interesting topics. After an hour, we'll go into our afterglow segment, and that's where we turn off the recording and just hang around and chat for a few more minutes. So do engage, jump in, talk to us. If you've got noise going on in the background, use that mute button. Other than that, no, not very many rules. Can't get voted off of this island. You can submit questions and topics in advance using that QR code or just shoot me an email. I say most Fridays because we are taking next Friday off, but and then we'll return the following week. Hello, hello. Big crowd today.
Hi,
Hello,
Mark.
Dale. Hello, Patrick. Good morning.
All right. Uh, so, Mark, you got anything for us? Or are you just here for the
Somehow
dialogue?
I thought you might ask me that. No, I didn't come with anything today.
Cool.
What do you have on your mind, Dale?
Well, let's get right into it. First is just version 126 stuff. So I think I saw that you had done some 126, um, at least one site up on 126 so far.
Yeah, sure do. And I've been in there going at it heavy. No
Good.
complaints. All positive stuff.
Great.
Well, so a couple of notes about that, and this is our check-in on 126. I wanted to mention a couple of things. Um, Number one, I don't think you're going to see any hot fixes available, but at this point, I would say I would hold off and not expect any hot fixes to be released. We have a fix that's going to be it's in the area of this performance. Remember when saving workflows that we got it to be lightning fast there for a while, and I think depending on what version of 126, some of that was reverted. They had I don't remember why they pulled back from it, but um, we're we have a more comprehensive solution to having that all be lightning fast. When I say comprehensive, it's one of those that touches every area of the product. So that, of course, means we're going to be doing some QA to make sure we get it right. But it's going to be one of those if we it could be one of those where every hotfix has the instruction, don't install this without that. It's something that touches every part of the product, and we find those kinds of upgrades confusing. So what we're going to do is we will be changing the minimum required version, which will end up when one day when we push that, and we're going to let you know in advance. But when we push that button, you'll go to configuration and it says you got to install everything now, install all required dependencies. We don't like to do that to people, but this is one of those that it's the least of the evils. So um, I just mentioned that to say um, if you're on 126, expect that. If you're not on 126 yet, you may be happier not encountering that, like on a production site being forced to upgrade and might want to hold off to 125 for another week if you're not in a rush for features. Was any of that clear? And Patrick, do you have anything to add to that idea?
No, that was clear, I think.
It was
Question?
clear. We get those notices that we have other things to install first. Where do we see that?
Well, in updates, and again, we try not to do this. We did it in 125, but when you go to updates and you're looking at hot fixes, if you open up and take a look and read what it is that you're going to get, it says the typical thing is, hey, we're fixing this, but it requires that you install that first, or that you install everything all at once. And so when that happens, if you just click the install everything button, typically that's a good solution. You just install them all at once. But that's where you see the notice. It's because this is touching 30 different things rather than releasing 30 different hotfixes that you have to read and wade through all that. Uh, it's just going to be you browse to configuration and it says you have to update, and you just have one button and it does everything.
Okay,
Again, we don't.
I approach the when I get to that update page, it's with a little trepidation because I think I better read every one of these update notes in this column to see which one needs to be first, or
Yeah.
see if I can determine which order they need to go in. And I was just thinking summary report and hey, here's your recommended install path. That would be really welcome because I do get to that screen and I think, oh boy, I'm going to have to sit down and study this before I take any action.
So internally, our product team decision was to try to avoid that. To try to avoid that you have to do this before that kind of thing. And because what we can do typically, these kinds of wholesale changes, we try to incorporate them. Our goal is to incorporate them into a major release, and so that's always you get everything all at once, and so that way you don't have to study. And then hot fixes are intended for um, I have this one thing and it's independent of everything else. You can just click and install it and all is good. And so then it doesn't take an upgrade path or study. It's just, hey, I need this thing or I don't need this thing. But that's our goal, and we fell short on this one. We released 126 and then found quickly that we had one of these things that touches everything in the product. So we're um, from your perspective, I mean, we're behind the scenes, we're paddling furiously. From your perspective, you're not going to have to worry about it other than one day you're going to browse to configuration and it's going to say you have to upgrade now. And um, it you won't have to worry about picking and choosing. You'll just click the button and it'll do it.
That sounds like a great thing, Dale.
Yeah, there are people that are under, and I can't remember what the term is. And Ben, who often participates in these meetings, uh, is under severe code control, right? And so forcing people to upgrade in order to continue to be able to develop is not is like difficult for somebody in that scenario. So we try to avoid it, but for most people, it's
And
not an issue.
a few versions back, like going back into the teens, at some point we were doing that, and then we made a decision to not do that anymore. But this situation now kind of dictates that it.
We
As
have the
long,
mechanism and we're trying to avoid using it.
yes, right, yes, it's always been there, and we used to use it more, and then we decided to stop doing that because it forces people to do something. But in this case, since it's early in the release, and and it would be very helpful, we're probably going to do it.
Okay. Say, Dale, you started off by saying, hey, remember when saving workflows was fast, and we're going to work on that again. I that made me remember another thing that I've been experiencing lately. I just wanted to blow your horn on that. You know, one version back, I think, Plantinab sped up the process of saving forms.
Yes.
And I have a lot of forms. I have a lot of tall, long forms with a bunch of controls in it. And I got to tell you that now they save a lot faster, a fraction of the time. It's actually pleasurable to work on these forms again, and I want to thank you for that.
Well, the I'm glad that it worked out. I'm trying to figure out how to take credit for the developers, but
Take credit. Take credit.
you know, we see these things. I think Bogdan, you know, he certainly cares about what the developer experience is and pushed through. How can we make this better? Sometimes it's coming up with innovative things, which and rethinking things. So, for example, and I don't know that you particularly care about the details, but you know, just a peek behind the curtain. Um, in the case, in this thing that we're doing now throughout the product, as I understand it, what's been happening when you save a workflow, part of what happens is that it creates actions um, to be able to execute the workflow, and those were actually being created on disk. And so it necessitated writing to disk, and then things weren't being cached, and so things had to be reread. And we're moving to a dynamic scheme where some configuration files, like how to do a send email, for example, those are hard coded, and they'll continue to be configuration files, but workflows will be dynamic. When you open a workflow, instead of it going out to disk to find the configuration, how should I fill in this form? It's instead going to have it in memory. And so, you know, they just get very creative about how to do these things. But again, it kind of touches. It's a quite a presumption of how things were done that's now changing, and so it requires a lot of work.
Mhm.
I see we have one more joiner. Welcome, Laura. Any other thoughts about 126? It's not really a 126 thing, but I have a next topic to get into. Always happy to take yours. All right, here we go. I stumbled upon, and maybe everyone else but me knew this, but I stumbled on a feature yesterday in a workflow when you're doing branches. What happens when there's no qualifying branch? I thought I knew. And so this is the workflow that I developed to test this out. At some point, I believe, and our documentation says that if you have a branch and it has different conditions, and none of the conditions succeed, that it would generate an error. But Patrick and I went back yesterday and took a look, and going back 5 versions, it doesn't generate an error. It does this neat behavior that I didn't realize. So the behavior is that it tests is in this case, I'm doing a checking my value of n. If it's greater than 5, then I go on this branch that I labeled A. In this case, if n is greater than 3, I go to this branch that I call B. And finally, if it's greater than 0, I go to branch C. But what happens? So the idea is, if n, which is coming from this input, if n is 99, it's going to go this way. If it's 4, it's going to go this way. If it's 1, it's going to go this way. But if it's 0, what I found out is it says, okay, I can't do any of these. They don't qualify, so I'm just going to jump to the merge. So it has an I mean, that's basically the else, right? The else is just I'm going to skip all of it. Did anybody else know that, or was it just me being behind?
I did not know that. And in fact, looking at the way you laid that out, I didn't know you didn't need two other conditions there to build the three conditions. That I always build it with an entry condition and then another one for your second one and another one for your third. So
Yeah. Which you're adding multiple branches.
right.
Yeah. So yeah, you can add as many as you want. The I believe that the order in which they're checked is the order in which they're added to your split. So the logic goes something like, well, this is the first one, so I'm going to test it. Is it true? I go this way. Nope, I'm going to test the next one added. Is it true? Nope. I'm going to test the next one. Is it true? Nope. And so now I've run out, so it's just going to jump to the merge. So there's a little bit indeterminate. If you have a condition like this, where I have I mean, for a value 99, all of these would be true, right? And yet it's always going to pick this path because this is the first one.
What
So,
makes it the first one though, Dale? Is it
when
position on
you
this
add
screen?
when you add a condition to a split, and add an action to a split, that is the next one. So this is going to be I'm just going to I'm going to add one here and not fill it in, but so this is the next one. Interestingly, it
Do they
positioned
have a ID number when you open up? No,
I think it is
No.
actually based on the order,
order
right?
that it was created.
No, the order that they appear, right, Dale? I think that's correct.
well, this is the kind of thing that we can do next. So I'm going to first demonstrate what I have, and then let's jack it up and play with it. So if I run this thing and give it, I should have showed you what I had, but I think this. You can see here at 126 that wasn't lightning fast. So here we go. 99, run, and I get branch A. The value was 99. I think it's useful to look at my code a little bit. So I start with setting the branch to no branch so that we can see when it takes the default path. The things in the middle just sets it to what path it took. So here's branch A, branch B, branch C. So this is very simple. It's not doing anything. And then finally, to prove that what happened, that we get back after the merge, I'm adding to branch, I'm adding the value was and whatever it was to the end of it, so that when we get here, we can see that this is executing. So now if I run that again, we can try all the different branches. So 99 is bigger than 5, and so we get to branch A. We pick 4, we get to branch B. Pick 1, we get to branch C. And then finally 0, and we get to no branch. So it's doing this and not doing any of these, but then going here.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is there any possibility that if the value of 4, that it did both A and B? There's always an or because of the split.
Um, That's a,
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't think my logic reveals that very well, but we can test the theory.
Well, it meets both, yeah, it meets both criteria. So
Yes, and so let's just make sure it should only go down one path. And so
Yeah.
instead of doing it this way, I'm going to say branch. It's going to be a little bit. It'll prove the point. It's maybe not fully clear because it's going to say default as well. But so now we're adding to. We're always going to get no branch as a start spot, and then it's going to add something or nothing. So does that test make sense to you?
Mhm.
Okay. And then I promise we will get to the order thing. I think that's important. So 50 gives us the initial value plus A plus the ending value. If we do 4, we only get B. So it's only picking one path.
Okay.
And C is fine. And then 0, it's not doing anything. So it's skipping, it's picking one branch and only one branch. And if it's an else, it's skipping all branches. Good?
Good.
All right, so now let's make a little room and pull this up. Patrick, are you, is this what you meant?
Yeah.
So now the split order has changed, and in theory, if we give it a 99, it's encountering this one first. So we'll take branch B or branch A. I think it's going to take branch A.
There's a betting joke in here somewhere. House wins.
So
So what that's saying is that the only way you can change order is to delete and recreate. I thought there was another way, but anyway.
Or um, or yeah, it's not pretty. I don't
Hmm.
I suspect if we got down into the, okay, how far into the weeds do we want to go, right?
You know, it's worth investigating this, but in reality, I think most of us would put more conditions such that it was very clear which path it was going to take, and not leave it up to the order in which it was created or some other
Yeah,
order that you
true.
don't see in your diagram.
Yes. And many of these gateways are going to be only one is true, right?
Right.
And so now it doesn't matter what order they get evaluated in. But in the case of like greater than, it does matter what order they get done, and you need to know. Um, so we have our configuration file that we exported. And so we're defaulting to no branch, and then we're doing a split, and then within the split, we have n greater than 5 is positionally first, followed by, so there's a condition, there's an action. So I'm guessing that it's this position, right? Because then if we go on down, we've got another condition that has no numbering associated with it, n greater than 3, and then we have another one n greater than 0. And so
I see an order index value. What is that related to? Is that the token within
within the
yeah
create,
okay.
update, apply tokens. Okay.
Yep.
So I'm going to postulate that if we moved this, if we change the order manually of this thing, so if we put this one lower in the process, so I'm going to remove it from there and add it below. We can see if I can find it. So here's, now we're saying that n greater than 3 is the first positionally, and then after that I'm going to add that back. So now we have n greater than 5 as the next thing, and then I'm going to clean it up here. So I'm thinking that this will make it evaluate in a different order, which I'm not advocating as pretty, I'm advocating as the way it is. So
I wonder, okay, I have another idea, but do this first and then we can make this go the whole call, I think. I'm just kidding.
I'm gonna make a copy of this before I do anything. I'm just gonna import that one back, but I want to have a copy so that we can always go back to where we started from today.
Sure.
So that's going to create something called branch greater than copy. And so I'm going to import, I had that on my clipboard. And so this should overwrite the original. People keep sneaking in. Hello, Dragos. Hello, Matthew. All right, so visually it's the same as we left it, but now let's run it. And now I'm postulating that we're going to get B. Oh, I have no idea what. We're still getting branch A. So sounds like something in the BPMN structure.
So my theory was try deleting your connectors.
I like it. So we have three connectors. I'll probably have to rebuild my logic too, which is
you have to put your I was gonna do all of them, just the one for B, but yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, because it would still be last, wouldn't it? Yep.
So
yeah.
So connect here, and it is missing a condition. So we're going to say, can we add a condition?
Can you just double click it? I think. No, double click the line.
Ah, there it is. So this is going to be, let's be 3 as its name. Didn't I delete? Oh, didn't I delete that?
No, you didn't delete that one, Dale.
Okay.
We can still clean.
Good. I want to make sure that we have a good test here. So this is a 5. See.
So what are we paying attention to here? The order in which you're creating those lines?
Yes.
So you
So,
created the B first.
correct. And just to, this is branch B, right? So I'm going to do a better job of labeling here. This is branch A. This is branch C. So earlier we tried to reorder them, didn't make any difference. Now we've tried to change the arrows by re-adding them and adding the conditions. So we did them in order, and so now we're thinking that this is going to make B run first when we have a high value.
And if not, then it's probably all down to the
Diagram.
or the ID of the action, maybe.
That's it.
Oh, there we go. Oh, yeah, that's
B ran first.
Yep.
So we kind of skipped by it, so I'm going to bring it up. There's all these definitions of actions in the export file, but then at the bottom, there is this quite confusing diagram XML that exists. This expresses what thing goes with, this is the visual pattern of the data representation of the way this lays out in the BPMN engine. So, so there's data, the way that it lays out is all covered by that. But we, I think we've probably determined, and we could do some comparison if you wanted to do some file comparison and see what changed when we redid these connectors. But the order of creation of the connectors is the order that appears to be followed for evaluation.
So now there isn't a scenario in which A will run, right? Because if we do 4, B is going to run.
Correct.
Also, so yeah, interesting.
Although we could say, I mean, we could jack with it, or we could add a hard code value in there, just to prove the processing. So,
Yeah.
Is this a good way for this split to operate? I'm thinking a low-code developer could get bit here by not understanding that you have to create those branches in the right order. Like maybe there should be a check when saving, maybe the closing merge or something that says, hey, you've got a path not outlined, a possible path that's not outlined, not covered, and the order too. Two things.
I would agree with you that there is no illustration of, I mean, it is possible to have some not obvious logic, and I'll bring this up to our product committee, but I think again our presumption was that the conditions were designed around only one is supposed to be true.
Yeah, being exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's called an exclusive gateway.
Well, that's what I would do. I would make that
yeah
exclusive.
Yeah.
In terms of possible fixing, if there was an illustration of this is path 1, this is path 2, this is path 3, it would at least illustrate what was going on.
You know, I've had the desire in the past, and that that if 2 conditions are met, I can't remember this. I can't remember the exact scenario, but I remember thinking that I really wish this would do this, and that's if 2 conditions are met, that it would run both paths. And in that in that spirit, I also in a chat with Bogdan, I suggested I also kind of wish that we had put conditions on the parallel gateway, even though the parallel gateway is designed to run things synchronously. Yeah, it would be nice if we still had conditions on them so that we could say I want this one and this one to run in this case, but not this one.
So I'm going to come back to you with your last argument, which is this is an exclusive gateway.
Yeah. Well, but the idea that I have would be would work if we had that on parallel gateways.
Yeah.
If we had conditions on parallel.
I know when I was researching this issue yesterday, I found a ticket that goes back to our previous product manager that suggests just that multiple it could process multiples, but I think that would be a breaking change. If we started processing multiples, I suspect we'll drop that as
yeah, I agree, and I think that when I said that when I made that comment about parallel gateways to Bogdan, he seemed intrigued. I think that that there's probably a way we could offer conditions on parallel gateways and not break any existing ones. You know, just make it that if a condition exists, it's evaluated. If it doesn't exist, there is no evaluation.
So the current the parallel gateway says you'd have, instead of using this exclusive gateway, you would have one branch and then every one of these other things would execute. And so being able to add a condition would just keep the gate. I agree. It doesn't sound like it would be any breaking consideration if no condition just means the whole thing executes, and that's fine.
Yeah, and it would be and it would still. I see what you're saying. What I'm talking about would not be within the meaning of exclusive gateway, but if we did conditions on parallel, it would still be within that meaning.
Yep. Thinking about other languages that have switch statements, I think that this kind of logic of is it greater than 5, is it greater than 3, is it greater than 1, in a text-based language like C#, I think it takes the first one that it finds, but order is very evident according to, you know, it's text, right? So the first switch that qualifies wins.
Yeah.
When we're doing it graphically, what is the first switch? And so, I mean, I think potentially it could be visual altitude, right?
I think
highest one first.
I think I think the visual would be that's what would make more sense to me. Like if I changed the although these don't have to be vertical though, so
Correct.
now that we're naming the branches there, I think if we just had a sort in that name dialog and put it in front of 1, be greater than 3, you know, greater than 3, 2, and just added a sort value in that dialog.
Or
in the one where you actually put the value.
Yes, here it is. So we could have an index.
Yeah, yes. Run this branch first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Make this almost like instead of just the condition, it could be like a branch settings or something like that.
So I'm thinking that
on this call, we're really good at coming up with more work, aren't we?
Yes, we are. I'm thinking it as a third parameter, right? Not tying it to the label, but having an index be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's worth discussion. And 2 members of the product team will get it to the member of the product team that makes decisions.
And then for the visual part of it, just put that index value in front of the label on the diagram. So if you had an index value there of 1 or 2, it would, your label when it shows on the diagram would be 1-B greater than 3.
Yep.
2.
Yeah.
And let me slide this just a little bit so well, I'm going to do the illustration. As long as we're going to do this work, I'm going to, we can mock this up, right? So we'll do a little bit of paint. I'm sure there's a better way, but this is my process.
I was thinking about that sometimes I've seen Bogdan go into Inspector and edit the code on the fly to add a
Yep.
field or something like that.
That looks beautiful.
Yeah.
But a up down arrow. Yeah. Something like that. As that, and then here.
Actually, you could just add it to the label if you wanted to illustrate it for the.
This should be.
Yeah.
I like that idea. This sounds yeah, it's potentially visually okay. The thing is too, something is happening down in I think we determined something's happening down in the diagram, right? So this would be I don't know how easy this is, but at least it's an idea. So we'll add it to the stack. In the meantime, knowing that it's knowing how it works, right? That it happens in the order that you create them, at least is an element of that. And then
You're doing a great illustration here of how confusing it can get if you start moving your lines around.
yes,
Because that
don't like
B
that
branch is still connected to the merge, but it doesn't look like it is.
Yes.
So I keep coming back to the fact that it's supposed to be an exclusive test there, and this particular example is not exclusive. And
Right.
so you mentioned that in other languages it does allow for that, and maybe I could be comforted by that knowledge, but it seems to me that the product of being low code, it's designed to help the developer to develop fast and in many cases not make mistakes. It seemed to me that it would be helpful if in this environment it notified the developer, hey, there's a path here that can fall outside of your tests, or it can be matched with more than one test.
Yeah. I think it would be very hard to say in advance whether conditions are always going to evaluate exclusive, because it would have to understand what values are present. But if it simply did what we were talking about by default, always have a 1 and a 2 and a 3, it would be very evident that this is the order that they're going to come in.
And the other thing about that, Mark, I think, is that in a real world scenario, so Dale's just in a testing type scenario here to figure this out. In a real world, these would most likely be variables being passed into the workflow, and or established by an earlier action, and the logic would have no way of knowing whether those variables, when they were passed in, would create a logic problem. You follow what I'm saying?
I am, but I guess
Yeah.
I'm thinking some things are still um, very easy. You know, like in this scenario, we've got greater than one, greater than three, greater than five. A computer program could run a test and say there's a lot of numbers. Well, I mean, there's a lot of possibility that more than one of those conditions could be met. Like any number above three is going to
Yeah.
meet two conditions all right there. So
I
I think some tests are easy. Maybe it won't be all inclusive.
yeah, I agree with you that it would be nice if it could. I think
Yeah.
there's
Okay.
issues where it's not possible.
Well,
Um, and now I flip back to my earliest programming experience when um, I was using BASIC on a teletype uh, connected to the local community college. Old guy, that's what I'm trying to say. And I typed in a statement and it says syntax error. Well, if you're smart enough to tell me there's a syntax error, fix it.
right.
So it's yeah. Okay. Have we beaten this one to death? We have 15 more minutes, and if somebody has a topic, it'd be a great time for us to jump, I think. See, so I had something to talk about. Um, I'm gonna go on to campfire contributions because there's three new ones since you've seen it. I don't know that any of these will change your life, but they're out there. Whoops, I put it in the wrong order here, so let's get it back. Um, so there's three. We had a client. We're starting to collect up the if we publish something to a support client, like a PowerShell to say, we'll try this to see what happens. Um, to debug your problem. We're publishing them here on Campfire as well, so that I mean anything that's non-dangerous, non-threatening, we're putting them out here. So this is a PowerShell that says, hey, can you download what you need to download in order to update your software? Because we had a client that was trying to install Plant an App on a server that it didn't, they we're not able to download all the updates. I mean, you install App Builder and it goes out and gets 75 other things that it needs. And turns out that that client wasn't connected to the internet, but we've got other clients that there were TLS issues where they didn't have what was necessary to communicate with our content delivery network. And so it wouldn't work. Anyway, so this PowerShell just tests to see whether whether you can get our updates, and so it's a debugging tool. We had another case where we wanted to make sure that the .NET framework, there's a minimum that you must have in order to run Plant an App, and we were getting goofy errors. So this was added to say, what .NET framework are you running? This quick PowerShell will just tell you which one, and so could be useful just to, and it's yeah, it just when it runs, it says you're running this. And then this one was contributed by Anthony, who usually follows along and listens. So I'm going to say, Anthony, thank you for doing this. I just turned it, it was contributed on the community portal, and I just turned it into an illustration. So the idea is that he came up with this. He said, I'm sorry, he came up with this as a way of saying whether or not the something should be hidden or shown. The old logic that you might have to use is something like this. This reads, if the severity is high, or if the severity is important, or if the severity is imperative, then something gets shown. This is true, and we get an additional field. This is slightly shorter, a little bit more manageable, and it says, here's a list of things. If severity includes that, then it's true. And so the end this is the logic that's in place in this thing. So if you say none or minor or medium, nothing happens. But if you say high or important or imperative, then it appears. And so this condition is a bind condition on this. So this will not change your world. The please explain is where it is in the bind expressions. So this isn't going to change your world, but if you want to know, oh yeah, there's a technique for doing this as a list. It's here, and you can go out and grab it and adapt it versus having to reinvent it every time.
Well, I think I was asking how to do this just a week or two ago. So this is really on time
Yeah.
for me.
And Dale, did you test, can you do this on a server-side expression using .contains? I assume that something like this would work there too, but
This exact syntax doesn't work.
no, but
It only works
yeah.
in a binding, and probably would work in a value as well. But so I took 5 minutes and found that it wasn't working as or even contains. I couldn't get it to work.
Oh, so okay, you did try contains in a okay, all right.
And I didn't stumble on the right thing. So rather than not publishing anything, I published the bind expression.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
So this one's here, and I throw that out as a challenge for whoever thinks that they're up to it to find the right expression. So for those that don't know, we are working on the bind expression. That's where we put it. You might only want to include this, for example, in a show conditionally or enable conditionally, and that expression won't work here. This is a different, it supports C# syntax instead of JavaScript syntax, so it's slightly different, and I'm sure it's doable, but I don't know what it is. So anyway, I keep trying to add techniques. What are we up to? Among all of us, we're up to 87 different things, little things that you're looking for, and just if you know they're out here and you're going to do one of these things, you'll save a ton of time to just copy and paste, follow the instructions, or see how somebody else did it. And so if you come to Campfire, you can at this event, happy to include you in the list of people that can add things. Or if you don't want to add, if you just want to look behind the scenes at how something was created, you have to have a login on this site, and I'll be happy to give you one. Okay, so that was complex conditionals, and we've done that one. So what else? 7 minutes to go. Community forum, we'll probably finish this out. Community.plantanapp.com, if anyone doesn't know, is where we have our forum. So you can come in the forum, see if you sign up there with an account, you can know when people post questions to a forum. If you go into, you can see when people post answers. You can sign up, subscribe to a particular question if you want to see the dialogue that goes along with that. So yeah, useful place to learn things and to help out your fellow low coders. Jerry, who is a frequent flyer on this event but didn't come today, had two questions this last week that were kind of interesting to follow along. One that he had a page that had one tab control, and then 12 different listings all under different tabs. And at first, when I saw this, I was a little bit concerned. 12 is kind of a magic number in Bootstrap. 12, the layout, the way that things happen in Bootstrap, it's a 12-column layout, and so I was concerned it was something weird like that. But this one just turned out to be Jerry is transitioning from using our controls under Bootstrap 3, which is the old way, to Bootstrap 5, which is the current way. And there was a setting that he missed, that when you switch a listing from in listings, they're called it's either legacy or data table, and so he was switching legacy, which is Bootstrap 3, data table, Bootstrap 5, and he was switching them over. But there's the same kind of setting in tabs that you have to say, I'm using Bootstrap 5. And so he had without, I mean, the short answer to his problem was, hey, flip the switch and it works. Flip it to Bootstrap 5. But knowing that's there, and that for those of you transitioning from Bootstrap 3 to Bootstrap 5, all of our tools have the ability to continue to run in Bootstrap 3 for now, and you can switch them to Bootstrap 5. So if you're in that process of switching, it's just good to remember that for a page, every page has to be all one way or all the other. And if you have them configured and mixed, so your listings in Bootstrap 5, your tabs in Bootstrap 3, your forms in Bootstrap 3, you're going to get inconsistent results. So we've got to have everything switched to the same thing. Comments, questions?
Is there any place, a like a SQL query that might tell us what things still have Bootstrap 3 turned on? Or is that buried?
It's the short version is no. But it's probably worth taking a look at where these are. I was just talking about it, but I can point to it. The problem is that all these settings exist in different places throughout our product. So this is an example. This page is an example of we have a tab that has listings and forms. So we have this nice mix of everything, and this happens to be Bootstrap 3. In the tabs, you can see it here in the settings. Uh-oh. I'm in the mixed. This is a perfect example of a problem one. So the theme is going to be Bootstrap 3, Bootstrap 5. So my tabs are set to Bootstrap 5. If I look at my listing here, I have a keep alive listing, whatever that is. And the way that you can tell the way that it's set is in the views. I'm stalling for this to come up. In the view settings, we have, it's in legacy mode. So this one is in Bootstrap 3. I'm going to fix this right now. By switching it to data table, that data table is implicitly Bootstrap 5. So that's going to clear that one up. And so we'll refresh. So now this is working in Bootstrap 5, and you see this wonderful bouncingness, and this is a typical symptom of when everything isn't all in the same setup. So this will serve as a good reminder for how do you convert a page to Bootstrap 5. I'm going to double check my page settings to make sure that the page settings are set correctly. So in advanced appearance, we have choice of if you're using our page builder layout, this is the one that's Bootstrap 5. If you're using your own theme, then you should choose, maybe your theme is providing Bootstrap 5, but regardless, it's your page's responsibility to provide Bootstrap 5. And so now we reload this, and I'm going to close out of edit mode, and we're still seeing bouncing. This is a symptom that something else on the page isn't Bootstrap 5. So I'm going to go through every form and or everything on the page here, make sure that we're all consistent. And then that will stop. For forms, it is on our settings page, settings tab. And so this one is set to Bootstrap 5. So that's good to know. And we have another form called basic action form. This one is on the Bootstrap 3 obsolete, so I'm going to flip it. And then that bouncing behavior stops. That's good. We'll keep checking. We already fixed the keep alive listing. We checked that one. We've got another sample tabs pro that's on this page, and it was in the wrong one. So I don't remember why, but we've gone through everything now, and they're all in Bootstrap 5. So all or nothing is required in order to avoid that bad behavior. I think this Tabs Pro was just something that wasn't configured. I'll double check that, but it's something that I dropped on the page and doesn't have any tabs. So this was just a test page, and so I'm going to clean that up. I don't need it. Delete it out. All right. So every product has a setting, and they're not easy to spot. You probably could, and it's page by page, right? If you're the scenario that we envisioned, if you're new a client to plant an app, you're only going to have Bootstrap 5 and you don't get into this issue. But if you're a client that use our old products using Bootstrap 3, they continue to run. But if you want to switch them over, you should go into a page, do all of the page, and get it to run and look right in Bootstrap 5. And they can all coexist. So. Cool. Now I have put us over the hour, so I hope you found that to be a useful discussion. We will not be here next week, but we will be here 2 weeks from now, and we'll take up whatever it is that you want to get into. We thank you for spending the hour with us, and hang on a few minutes if you want, and we'll go into our Afterglow segment.